This podcast was produced as part of the exhibition All Eyes on Palestine in Athens. The event is promoted by the Meta Center for Post-Capitalist Civilization, and it is curated by me, Eletta Stamboulis, with the co-curatorship of two artists, Doris Hakim and Dana Estrato. The exhibition will be traveling through Europe. Hi, today we have the great pleasure to host Mohammad Saba'aneh, who is one of the best illustrators and comics drawer, and also an activist in Palestine. And we're very pleased and honored to have Mohammad as a guest of our exhibition, All Eyes on Palestine, which will take place in Athens in December 2025 until January 2026. So Mohammad, hi, nice to meet you. Would you like to introduce yourself, telling us firstly, I know that it is a little bit annoying, but doing comics as well, I know that everybody wants to know why did you decide to do comics in your life and you didn't do something more serious, let's say.
First of all, I'm Mohammad Saba'aneh. I cannot label myself, but sometimes I say that it is enough to say that I'm Palestinian. But yes, I'm a visual artist. I cannot categorize myself as a political cartoonist because I work as a political cartoonist and as illustrator or as a visual artist. Beside my work as a teacher at the Arab American University, it is the first Palestinian private university. I teach art here and design. Started my life with visual art and doing my daily political cartoon with many newspapers, even here in Palestine or around the world in the Arab countries. Cartoon movement in Middle East Monitor, Al-Quds Al-Arabi in London, and many newspaper websites and platforms actually around the world, and participated with many even solo exhibition for myself as a political cartoonist, collective exhibition with another Palestinian or international cartoonists about a lot of issues. I've done and organized 3 international exhibitions here in Palestine for political cartoon. And then actually I published my first book in 2017, and it was a collection of some of these political cartoons about Palestine, trying to figure out how we can create a new visual language for the political cartoon here in Palestine. Most of the Palestinian cartoonists, they got influence from Naji Al-Ali, the Palestinian political cartoonist who was killed in London in 1987. Naji Ali, the main concern of him was the topic, the idea, the opinion about the political situation, even when he was talking about the occupation or when he was talking about the PLO or the Palestinian leaders and Arab regimes. He was care more about the content, the idea, the opinion of these political issues. The rest of the Palestinian cartoonists, or most of the Palestinian cartoonists who they got influence from Naji Al-Ali, they did the same actually. Not all of them, they cared about the visual language or the art itself. That's why my first book was experimental work to trying to find out how can it create a new visual language for the Palestinian political cartoon and use new symbol, new figures and all of this element for the political cartoonist. And actually my first book gave me the chance to have more than 3 tours in United States, one in London, Ireland, and in France. My visit to United States gave me also chance to meet many comics artists like Seth the Bookman, Joe Sacco, and Ethan, many comics artists in United States. And at that time, actually, in 2017, 2018, I couldn't know exactly what is the comics. I couldn't do the comics. I try to do something because, most of the audience, when you travel around the world, they always need to read. They always need narration. It's not just about how they can translate your visual language into their ideas or understand it. Maybe that's what motivates me to think about the comics, because the comics is a visual art, but it is with narration, it is with narrative, that the reader or the audience that they can read it, and they can get more information, and to know exactly the situation in all of these countries. I couldn't do comics actually because of by just visiting this country and have this connection with these artists. That's why in 2019 I applied for scholarship in the UK. And I traveled to the UK to get my master's degree in art of illustration. My thesis, my research, all of my journey during my master's degree, it's about the comics. And I had a great colleague, her name Anastasia. She was doing comics actually, and she helped me to improve my knowledge about the comics. And that's how I started with my first book, Power Born of a Dream. The book we can consider it the first Palestinian comics actually, which was published from Palestine, because we know we have Layla Abdelrazak, the Palestinian comics artist, who she lives in United States, but here from Palestine, and who lives in Palestine and do comics. That was the first time. Then I did I don't know, it can't be comics, but I did one about Gaza. Next year, I will be publishing my second comics. The name of that comics will be Welcome to Hell, about the life inside the Israeli prison after the 7th of October. My journey with the comics, actually, it's started we can call it in 2020. But right now, I have three comics, graphic novel. I did many workshops with young artists here in Palestine to teach comics and to give these artists some knowledge about the comics through my experience and my master's degree. And we organized 2 years ago or 3 years ago also a collective exhibition for the Palestinian artists here in Ramallah, and that exhibition also was moved to the Lakes District Festival in the UK last year. And right now we have exhibition in Spain for these Palestinian comics artists, and we had many achievements actually. Next year we are going to publish a book for Khalid Jaradi. He's a Palestinian artist from Gaza who lives in France actually. Fouad Yamani also. We published also book for Safa Audi from Gaza. I try to improve the industry of the comics in Palestine, because I do believe as a Palestinian we need to convey our narrative.
Yes, it is true. And to be honest, I tried for many years, when I was the director of the festival Comikazen in Italy, to find a Palestinian comic artist. The only one who I was able to find was Samir Harb, who is actually an architect and who did some short stories, very good short stories. But then when we finished the festival, you came up, and we didn't have the festival. So this is the time that finally you will be part of something that I'm creating. I'm so happy, Mohammad, because I think that your side, your way to represent stories is so important, and it's a way also to decolonize our view, our gaze on Palestine, which is also one of our aim. And I would like to ask you something about your technique. It is true that you are somehow the nephew of Handala. At the same time, your technique is so different, and you also use in many illustrations a scratching technique, a technique. It is like xylography. Can you tell us something more about the way you decided to represent the world in black and white, but with different accent of black and white and gray?
I like to be very honest when I talk about our art. Sometimes we have this deep concept while we are using this mediums, even the lino cut or the ink or the Indian ink or the Chinese ink, or using color or digital art. But at the same time, here in Palestine, because I teach at the university, and I know that, and I know it as an artist, and I know it as a teacher here in the university, that we have this lack of material. We don't have, like many countries, stores that you can find colors and all of these options to use all of these mediums and to experiment all of these things. Unfortunately, just today I had a lecture about the color, just gouache color. And the student, they could not find a good gouache color to mix their color. No one can imagine that when you talk about that. No one can imagine that these artists in Palestine, sometimes they don't have. It's not just about the money. It's around the world. You can find many artists who they use alternatives material because they don't have money. But here in Palestine, they don't have money. And even if they have money, they cannot find materials. That's why I had this passion and this motivation to experiment all of this kind of medium. It's not just about the concept. It's not just about this deep idea about how you can represent your idea even with the medium. Sometimes, yes, as a human being, as an artist around the world, I want to experiment this material. I want to, when I have this chance to travel around the world, I have big store for all of these materials in my home. And sometime when I travel to Europe or to another country, I buy something, I don't know how exactly I can use it. Just when I travel back, I will try it. Just because as an artist, you need to experiment. You have this passion as a human being, not as a Palestinian who want to convey his deep idea and deep concept and all of these metaphoric ideas. But at the same time, when I use the technique, like when I did my first comics, which was done by the linocut and linograph, I wanted to think about exactly the life inside the prison, inside the prison. I really found some of my friends, I could read their names on the wall because they carved their name on the wall, and I couldn't do that inside the cell. That's why inside the prison, I couldn't use all of this material. I couldn't even imagine how these Palestinian prisoners, they carved their name. That's why I've decided to use the linocut to represent the Palestinian issues and the Palestinians' prisoners' life inside the prison, and do this comics about the life inside the prison and outside the prison. That was the purpose of dream. That's why I used the linograph, because I've decided that I need to carve the stories of the Palestinian prisoner outside the prison, because I couldn't carve my name inside the prison. Even the life inside the prison, when you carve the linoleum or the wood, you cut the area that you cut, it became white area. You remove the darkness of the prison. You remove the darkness of that life inside the prison into the white, into the light, because that is what we need inside the prison. Sometimes when you talk about the life inside the prison, you think that when we talk about the dark place, it's like metaphorical idea. But it is dark inside the Israeli prison. It is dark. It is hard. It's not easy. And even it's worse after the 7th of October. And that's why exactly I have decided to publish my new book, Welcome to Hell, to talk about the difference between the life inside the prison after the 7th of October and after the 7th of October, because it's so different. Welcome to Hell, it's going to be talking about the journey of my brother inside the Israeli prison after the 7th of October. And by the way, he was in administrative detention. He wasn't charged with anything. He has spent more than 1 year inside the prison without his glasses, because the Israeli jailers, they have broken his glasses. For 1 year, he couldn't see like any human being around the world. That's why exactly sometimes I use this medium to represent some ideas, and at the same time, because I need to experiment all of these materials as a human being, as an artist around the world.
Yes, and your first book, the second, has been also presented in Greek, which is amazing, because in Greece there are very few translated books. It is not easy to have a book translated in Greek. I have to mention this because it is more easy to be translated in French, because French have a so big audience and a big commercial world of comics, not the same in Greece. We hope really to have you, if it's possible, in Athens again to present your book in January, Mohammad, or in our traveling exhibition in the next edition we are going to organize. One last question, that is the question I do to everybody, to every one of you, to each of you. Do you think that art in the so dark times has a special role? Do you think that doing art is giving what you need in this moment?
It's a hard question, actually. Even maybe the Palestinian scholar Edward Said has mentioned that when he compared the culture as a tool of, if we can call it, resistance against the dominant narrative for the occupier, and that was to decolonize your narrative first. You should talk about yourself and use maybe the art as a tool of resistance. At the same time, as a one who has a friend who they have spent more than 21 years inside the Israeli prison, friends who they were killed by the Israeli because they committed resistance, real resistance. I cannot compare the cultural activity as a resistance, because who is practicing the resistance, a traditional way of resistance, they have paid a very heavy price here in Palestine and around the world. And I cannot, as an artist, to share them this kind of privilege that they are resistant. But at the same time, we are not fighting against and resist against traditional colonialism regime. We are resist against settler colonialism regime. And this kind of settler colonialism regime, first, to justify his violence against the indigenous, he wants to dehumanize them. He wants always to represent the Palestinian people as violence, as primitive, as barbaric people without culture, without ethics, without all of these things. And that's what explicitly was mentioned by the Israeli leader with the beginning of this genocide, when they have mentioned that we are fighting against human animal. This is dehumanization. This is not by coincidence. They want to justify this genocide by representing the Palestinian people as a human animal, as a primitive people, and Netanyahu, for more than one time, he has mentioned that this is the civilized nations war. Against who? Against uncivilized people, the Palestinian people? That's exactly what he wants to illustrate by his discourse. In order to dismantle this dehumanization discourse that was used by the Israeli against us as a Palestinian, it is very important to use the art, the visual art, the intellectual product, music, art, visual art, any kind of intellectual product or creative product, to dismantle the Israeli propaganda against us as a Palestinian people, and to represent ourselves as a Palestinian, as a human being, as a nation who they have heritage, who they have history, and they have culture, and who they can use the art as a tool of resistance against this Israeli atrocity. And that's why exactly I do believe that the art, it is important to be used as a tool of, let us call it resistance, but yes, that's what exactly what we can do. Always the colonizer, they want to block the narrative of the Palestinian people, the narrative of the occupied people. And that's what exactly Edward Said also has mentioned when he has said that nations themselves are a narration, and we have our narration as a Palestinian. And that's why also exactly I try to use the comics as a medium, because the comics has his independent narrative within the visual art.
It is tragically true. I want to mention that comics artists paid the heaviest price of dictatorship, of colonialism. Of course, you mentioned the creator of Handala, but not to forget the Algerian drawers that were killed during the first days of the civil war in Algeria, and we have the Syrian cartoonist.
Akram Raslan
There are a lot of
Akram Raslan, and I can mention that I'm the representative of Cartoonist Right International Network, and always we are following and try to follow all of these violation against the political cartoonists. And it's not just about who they have lost their life. Also, Steve Bell has lost his job in The Guardian during this genocide just because he criticized Israel. And many cartoonists from around the world, when they are criticizing Israel or they criticize Israel, they always accused as anti-Semitic, supporting Hamas, supporting a terrorist group, and all of this kind of propaganda that being used against not just the Palestinian people, and also these cartoonists who they are supporting the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian human right.
Yes, it is tragically true. So thank you, Mohammad. Thank you for being with us, and hopefully we will meet very soon.
Thank you for this invitation and the interview.
Interviews with the selected artists aim to amplify their voices, thoughts, lives, and practices. What does it mean to be an artist today while the genocide in Gaza and the urbicide in the West Bank are still ongoing, while the very right of the Palestinian people to exist is being denied? What is the role of art when the machinery of evil operates relentlessly? Can Guernica stop a soldier's hand, or can it only document reality? These far from simple questions will be the foundation of this journey. The goal is also to chart a map and a landscape of these extraordinary artists, the vast majority of whom live in forced diaspora.